from the NewsChannel 5 network. This is Score on Business.
Hey, welcome to Score on Business. I'm Pete Hendricks. I'm your host today. Hey, a lot of folks aren't sure how to get started when they're wanting to do a business. Go to scorenashville.org. We have a lot of resources. So our first guest, who is a returning guest, is Norma Shirk, and she is the founder of Corporate Compliance Risk Advisor. She's an attorney who worked on employment law issues as an in-house corporate attorney and now provides human resources consulting services for small businesses with up to 50 employees. And she hopes that they will not need someone with her previous background.
Absolutely.
Yes. And thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So Norma, tell us just a little bit about what you do, what your company does.
My company does human resources consulting for small businesses that have up to 50 employees. And basically what that means is we go in and tell them which employment laws apply to them based on the number of employees that they have, and then what they need to do to get into compliance. And that usually means updating or revising some written policies, getting some written procedures. And then once we have all that squared away in HR, we take the HR component and fit it into the context of their entire corporate compliance program. A lot of small companies kind of overlook that. It doesn't matter how small you are. You do need to have a compliance program across all the risks of your company. The biggest risk always is going to be HR, because people are people. But to have it all fit together. So we start with HR, we move on to look at internal controls, and then we look at whether there's something they can use insurance to mitigate some of the risk.
Okay, so you've written a book which we're going to talk about. I understand about being in compliance. I'm not completely following that it needs to be not just HR, expanded. Does your book go into that? In other words, are you going to cover the difference?
In this book, I don't. I do have one coming out soon.
Okay. Can you share an example? So you were just saying something to the effect of it's not just HR, it needs to go out through the organization. Can you give an example of what that would look like? Oh,
sure. A very common one, happens all the time. You have a brilliant policy in HR that says that employees cannot take company funds or they'll be fired. But you don't put in any internal controls. And so you have what I call the slush fund, the petty cash box, where it's supposed to go to buy the next thing of coffee or whatever. It doesn't. Somebody is a little short, so they dip into the petty cash and they take it, and then over time they just keep taking more and more and more. And eventually you find you have a hole in your bottom line. And because you had no internal controls, totally separate from HR, you weren't able to stop a loss to the company.
Okay, that makes perfect. Now I get it. Okay, so you've written a book, and what's the title of the book, and let's talk about it.
The title of the book is Psychobosses and Obnoxious Coworkers.
Yes.
And it actually has way too many of my former employers in there. Everything is disguised, so hopefully nobody will recognize themselves. But it's common examples that we meet in the workplace. The Miss Piggy, who doesn't care about anybody else, it's all about her. The Psychoboss, who gives irrational orders, who throws things when they get upset, whatever. We've all met these sorts of employees.
So Miss Piggy cares about no one else but herself. In the context of your business and expertise, what do you say about that in the book?
In the book, what I have is, perhaps it would help to explain a little bit of the way the book is set up. So the book is based on a blog I've been writing since 2014, and it's a short anecdote of something that goes hideously wrong in the workplace. And then there are three possible solutions. One is always completely ludicrous. I remember in one, the person is so scarred by their psycho boss that they decide to move to Nepal and become a novice Buddhist nun. So there's always one that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
But and then there's a little paragraph at the end that says what the best option would be.
Okay. Let's talk about this. The Psychoboss is going to cause more damage than Miss Piggy, most likely. So tell us about the Psychoboss and kind of what your message is there.
Yeah, Psychobosses come in a couple of different varieties. They can be the narcissist, which is very close to a Miss Piggy, but they cause more damage because they supervise people. Miss Piggy doesn't necessarily. Another type are the bosses that won't make a decision. So
the narcissist, what does their behavior look like in the context of being boss?
Oh, they will burn anybody. They will give you a solution to a problem today, and 5 minutes later they'll say something entirely different, and it's your fault for not understanding they meant the second one, not the first one.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then you were moving over to the one who won't make a decision.
Yeah, then you get the ones that won't make a decision, so they wait until events sort of take care of themselves. But in the meantime, that causes a lot of chaos.
Oh, yeah.
And so failure to make a decision is a decision. It's just a bad choice.
Right.
And so employees end up with a boss like that where they're under much more stress because they're not authorized to make, they don't have any delegated authority to make a decision, and they have to watch bad things happen. And then of course indecisive bosses won't say, oh gee, it's my fault, I didn't tell you what to do, I couldn't decide. They end up turning on their employees and saying, it's all your fault, you made me look bad.
Okay, so what do you say in the book about how to handle let's do the narcissist first. What do you say about handling them?
With the narcissist, ultimately where you end up is you either have to kind of accept that that's the person you're dealing with,
right,
or you need to move on. I mean, ultimately with any company, when you're in a bad situation at any level in a company, you have basically three choices. One is to just keep rocking along like you are with the stress going higher and higher. The second is to fight to make the system change, which it won't. And the third is to walk away. Yeah.
You know, in a toxic environment, you have to do that. And then, so you put that in the context of what an employee or team member would do, but as a, you know, this show is for people who own the company, and they need to be seeing when people are like that and taking action.
Yes, as the owner, when you look at it, if you have a Miss Piggy, or maybe it's not a supervisor, but it's someone who's kind of a narcissist, it's all about me, forget about you. You either need to work with them to find ways to help them change their behavior, or as an owner, you have to say, this is about the good of the company.
Right.
And with a small company, you can't afford to have somebody there who is perhaps not all that competent and drives away all your other people.
Oh, yeah.
So at some point, you have to look at the bottom line and you say, you know, this person is so toxic, we need to, if necessary, pay them some money to go away.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a break. Ladies and gents, we'll be right back.